Welcome to Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast. I'm your host, Dave West, codename Phantom Troublemaker.
I am your co-host, Noel Wood, codename Crapshoot.
And I'm your Cobra intern that's on KP duty because I saw the red door and I painted it black. Codename Legion Cub.
Aw, always like a Stones reference around here.
That's what they gave me to peel the potatoes with. Cobra Kitchen sucks.
Nothing wrong with a little tater peeling. It builds character. Speaking of tater peeling, I don't have a segue. We're on the Needless Things YouTube channel. Live usually every other Monday, but we'll give you a heads up on that if you're following Audible Interlude Podcast on Instagram, where every time we're going to go live, we put up a post that says Sound Off, where we ask you what you want us to talk about. And we've got a few sound offs tonight. It was a little light, but that's okay because we've got a meaty episode because Black Friday is coming up this week, and we've got a little something special to celebrate the occasion with.
Make it rain.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, everybody, you're already spending money. Good Lord. You might notice at the bottom of the screen, if you're watching us live on video, Super Chat for new hats. We are trying to do a new run of Audible Interlude podcast hats. As you can see, very attractive red, white, and blue trucker hat style. They will feature, however, the new logo that you can see in the bottom left corner of your screen, designed by our pal, our artistic partner, Slickalicious. So while you're there on Instagram, check out Shop Slickalicious. And speaking of shopping, guess what, you guys? Black Friday is here, and along with Black Friday comes sales. That's right. Audible Interlude t-shirts on sale now, including this brand new design. It's bigger, it's bolder, it's brighter by Slickalicious. The Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast logo shirt, available in many sizes, colors, and styles, as low as $15 right now during the Black Friday sale. But that's not all. We've also got Beastie Boys, AI Pod. Welcome to beautiful Braca Beach. Other colors of AI Pod. Old school Audible Interlude logo. And Needless Things logo shirts. All on sale now for Black Friday for at least the next 48 hours. But you know they'll do it again and again and again. So buy those shirts on sale. Represent Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast. Noel and Christian, what's going on, fellas?
It's another day in paradise. I just got back from Greenville, South Carolina, where I got to
I don't want to hear about it.
Show.
But unfortunately, we have a podcast that is largely centered around toys, so I guess you're going to have to talk about it at some point. Now that I'm done with the hard sell, or actually, wait, 2 more hard sells, and then we'll get into your Retro Toy Con experience. First of all, I am currently recovering from the flu. Our last live stream, I was recovering from COVID, and I am not even joking when I say I just had 5 days of the flu, and it was rotten and miserable. And in the throes of the flu, I conducted an interview with Alex Antone, the editorial director for Skybound's G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. We had a great conversation that was, I'll be honest with you. Like I said, I had the flu, so we had a lot of fun talking. I didn't honestly get into as much as I wanted to get into, but we did hit some sound offs from the listeners, and he gave us some juicy answers in that interview. So check that out, available wherever you get your podcasts. And finally, our next live stream is December the 4th. So put it on your calendar and have your Audible Interlude podcast t-shirts ready to go. All right, Noel. Make me jealous. Tell me about the thing that I missed while I was horking up giant bags of snot all weekend long.
I got to spend a nice, relaxing weekend in Greenville with a couple of my best friends and my wife and my dog. And, nothing of note happened. No, it was a Retro Toy Con in Greenville. It's been going on minus, I think it didn't happen the COVID year, but other than that, it's pretty much just happened every year for the last decade or so, and it's been at the same hotel, the Embassy Suites up there. It's a wonderful show. It's a great hotel. Actually, I can't recommend the hotel enough. I shouldn't say it too much because I don't want everybody booking the rooms in advance in case we last minute book one like we did this year. But like they have like a free happy hour where they give you a couple free cocktails between 6 and 7:30. They have free breakfast, and it's a full breakfast. So that was all very nice. But we were there. I was there representing the Finest. Our garrison had a booth set up, so we were raising money for Canines for Warriors, which I'm sure you've heard me talk about several times. Raised over $200, which not bad for for a day and about 2 hours the next morning. Met a lot of really cool people, talked to a lot of the vendors, talked to a lot of just patrons at the show, and bought some toys. Honestly, I bought so few toys in the vendor hall. Almost everything I bought was from the room trades they do, and that's one of the best things about it. It's an Embassy Suites, so all the rooms in the hotel have like a living room area and the bedroom in the back. So people just set up in their little living room areas, and like when the floor closes, you can go up and just walk around. They have like a big sign down at the bottom floor that just shows like people's rooms that are up for grabs. But because it's a big atrium, you go up to the 8th floor and you just look down and you can see, okay, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there.
Yeah.
It's like the Amsterdam of G.I. Joe toy shows.
and it gets dangerous too, because I mean, these are people unloading for their room. You're probably gonna get better deals than you're gonna get from just even the vendor floors. So you can do some negotiating. It's always a good time.
Oh my gosh. Well, real quick, I've got to say, Agent Chuckles says Giant Bags of Snot was the name of my punk band.
That was great.
I think I've heard them. They're not good. So we've got Daniel Rodriguez, Boyle and Pop, Kevin Riddle, Mandalorian Jedi, Daniel Rodriguez again, all hanging out in the chat. And Noel, are you going to share your purchases once we get to Joe and Tell?
Yeah, I'll share some purchases once we get to Joe and Tell.
Excellent. All right. Mandalorian Jedi says, for anyone else, make your reservations at the beautiful Roadside Inn. Bring disinfectant spray and a firearm. Agent Chuckles, not good and proud of it. That's right. That's punk rock, my friend.
Yep.
No more than 3 chords. So now it is time, and we don't have a whole lot of it, but we do have a little bit of news. The Pulse Season Savings Event is underway. Who here has already made some purchases? Show of hands. I have. We all have. All 3 of us have, really. Now, but having said that, looking at the selection of what's available now, and remember, they always add stuff every few days. So what's up now is not all, well, if it follows with the last couple of years, is not all that will be on sale by the time this thing is done on the 29th. So nothing Joe yet, although if you notice that original Gung Ho is still hanging out at the end of the list.
I did pick up a Joe. Because,
oh, really?
Yeah, they had the Walmart Retro Baroness.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Which I never picked up because I was like, I've already got one. She's on my shelf. But as I was rearranging my classified figures last weekend, I was like, I really like that other figure better. So I'll pick it up at some point. But because I haven't been able to find it at Walmart in a few weeks, but even at the toy show this weekend, I was seeing them go for like 35 or 40.
Oh, okay.
Like, well, maybe I'll just be okay with my other Baroness. I don't need another one that bad. And then when I saw that I could get one for $16,
yeah.
We finally had an Ollie's open up down here.
Really?
Yeah, it was like a 40-minute drive for me to get there. So this won't be an every week stop for me, but simply because I was finally in an Ollie's to buy something. Yep, I snagged the movie Baroness for $4.99 because I figure I'll probably be able to cut the hair off and get some better looking hair for her and make what was her name? Chameleon?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I was like $4.99 for the Baroness, or I think Lady J was like $7.99. Those were the only two that they
Oof,
had at ours,
Wow.
and I was like,
that's
"Ooh,
rough. That's
what
Yeah.
a pick!" But
that's
The one
rough
that I
for a
went to
40-minute
last week-
drive.
Yeah, the one that I went to last week had thousands of movie figures. I mean, like I thought that I'd seen them all, and then I go to another part of the store, and there was another just table with another like couple hundred of them on there. I've never seen that many of the same toy in one place.
That's how the one I went to was. They had the display up front with like a full end cap of just G.I. Joe movie figures, but then in the back they had like a whole other section of how many of those things did they make? Good Lord.
Yeah. I think they expected that movie to be a little bit bigger hit than it was.
I think they did. Let's see. Oh, Mezco 112 Collective Roadblock started shipping 2 weeks ago. I think I mentioned on the last live stream that I had to change my credit card information. That took a phone call and 2 emails. They finally charged me a week ago and still haven't shipped it. So thanks, Mezco. So that review coming someday here on the Needless Things YouTube channel. But until then, something else has shipped that will be up tomorrow, and that is the Soundwave Thunder Machine. It is awesome. Soundwave, as you can see if you're watching the video feed, is big and bulky and blocky and has fancy red shoes on. He's got ruby slippers. There's no place like Cybertron. There's no place like Cybertron. But he looks awesome. Like proportionally, everything, just an excellent transformation. The instructions, because of course he comes in the box in robot mode, and you have to transform into the Thunder Machine. And I did a side-by-side comparison with the original Thunder Machine in the review. And the transformation, it's not as easy as the Awe-Striker, but easier than the Hiss. But then I was able to transform him back into robot mode in like a minute without looking at the instructions. So it was very intuitive. But Soundwave is awesome.
Soundwave superior.
The O-rings, while at first glance they look really cool, again, in the video feed, you'll be able to see this. They left the discs in Zartan's knees black, which is, of course, extremely lame because his lower legs are black and they just painted red on, which if you're going to paint the red on the tops of his pants, why not paint I don't understand it all. And then his armpits also have black discs. Really, really ugly. Makes the figure feel like a thrown-in afterthought, which is a shame because otherwise he's got a really nice pearlescent silver on his chest plate. Although I wish his thigh plates were also that silver.
How's the material for his cowl? Is it the same as the old figure, or is it?
It's pretty similar.
Okay.
It's pretty similar. It feels good. It's shaped differently. I like it. It's a little more snug on his head, so it doesn't look as balloony. His face sculpt is great. He's got green eyes. Like, if they hadn't cheaped out on a couple of parts, this would be an excellent Zartan. And unfortunately, Zorana suffers the same issue. She's got black discs on her knees. Now, hers are more obscured because her knee pads go up in front of them. So otherwise, she's a better figure. Proportionally, she is smaller. This is a very, very different figure from the original Zorana because, you know, most of the Joe females were kind of the same size as the males. Like, they were different shapes, but she is actually more petite than, if you can, let's see here. I don't know if I'll be able to show two at the same time very well, but if you can see, she's actually a little more petite and shorter than Zartan, which I think is a pretty cool thing. So overall, Zorana's a better figure, or Zorana, or you say Zorana, I say Zorana.
Let's call the whole thing off.
I made that same not really joke in the review. But yeah, just the laziness of not matching those materials up is very, very disappointing, and it makes me slightly less excited for the Triple T. Well, not for the Triple T, but for the figures that are coming with it. Although they should have... Oh, how bad is it going to be if they have black knees with their green... Think about Leatherneck and Sergeant Slaughter, but they have black boots.
Yeah.
So they could do the same thing with them, conceivably.
Well, if it's Sergeant Slaughter, he should have black pants, right?
Which Slaughter is it?
If it's the Triple T version, does he?
Triple T has camo pants, yeah.
That's right.
But I don't remember which version they showed. I would imagine it's the Triple T version. Anyway. So, pretty disappointed in those O-rings, but Soundwave is great. So, Black Friday started early on Amazon. I got another Grunt for $17.49. It's not an $11.99 Grunt, but it is a cheaper Grunt, and I wanted a second one. I got to figure out how I'm going to remove his name tag.
I also got a second Grunt. If you trust yourself, I know there's two ways to do it. I took the dull side of my X-Acto blade and lightly started scratching, and it was coming right off.
Oh, okay.
But if you're afraid of, scratching up the plastic, just grab some non-acetone, I think it is, nail polish remover.
You know what?
A little dab, and then it'll come right off, and water.
You know what I might do is I've got a very, very tiny paintbrush. I might just do a little black acrylic paint over it.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest.
Sharpie, just Sharpie it.
Ah.
So I got my Grunt so that I could have...
Yes, that's right.
A hangout in the pit snow job, and I'm a little disappointed because snow job's neck and Grunt's neck do not match up very well.
Oh,
like there's a gap.
Oh yeah,
and it's so tight. When I was putting it on, I could feel the neck barbell. So, like, you can't turn his head. You have to turn him from the neck. Because if you try to turn the head, you can feel the plastic. And I'm like, come on, Hasbro.
Huh.
Make it easy for customizers, please.
That'll just never happen. And I don't know why. I know why. The answer in some way, shape, or fashion is money. But however that lies, we don't know.
Yeah.
Rock and Roll was also $17.49. The Tomax and Saymot were pretty cheap, but I don't think anybody cares about them anymore. And then the Viper 3-pack, which granted, I know some folks are finding it at Ross for $15, and that's great for them. But for those of you who are like us and never find anything at Ross, it was $40, which is, I mean, for $40, you can buy that, throw away the officer, and still be getting a great deal.
I still refuse to buy it out of solidarity for Noel.
Buy it all you want. I could buy it.
No, I even at $40, I look at it and I'm just like, I don't like that color scheme. The Python Patrol Vipers, I really, really like, but the regular ones,
like, if you want to do some customizing, it could be good fodder for it at that price. But
yeah,
not something that I'm usually doing.
We've got some classified dates moving around. As of earlier today on Pulse, the Hiss Fire Team is set for December the 15th. Shockwave, Buzzer, and Soundwave are also set for December the 15th from Pulse. Whereas Amazon, my Shockwave should be here Wednesday. as
And
well as my Ripper.
I was going to say, there was somebody I saw on Instagram that got their Ripper from Amazon already.
Yeah, mine was supposed to be here today, and then this morning I got a shipping delay, and then they shipped it like immediately after that, but now it's not getting here till Wednesday. But yeah, people were getting it over the weekend, so that's great. Amazon was estimating today for the Thunder Machine, so that may be showing up for more people. I got mine came from Big Bad last week. Pulse has Hawk and Ripper as. Oh, wait a minute. Did I say Ripper twice? No, that was Buzzer.
Yeah,
so
Buzzer's
Pulse
15.
Pulse has Hawk and Ripper for November the 28th. Shockwave and Nunchuck. I already said Shockwave. Shockwave and Nunchuck for December 15th. And then Pulse has the new Python Patrol stuff from Target on November 27th, while Target has it listed for November the 24th. So all that new Python Patrol.
Oh, man.
Yeah, there's a lot. We've gotten a lot, but there's even more.
I was looking back at like figures that, I mean, granted it was 2 years ago when they were still like pre-ordering the Bat and the Alley Viper. I think it was actually like almost 2 years ago to the date that that was first put up for pre-sale. But that was like 31 was the Bat,
Yeah.
and now we're in the like 120s at this point.
I think 106 is the highest number we've had in hand.
But like we're ordering, like I think some of the pre-orders.
Oh yeah,
are like
pre-orders are up to
at this point.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's like an average of 50 a year at this point.
Yeah.
So a figure a week almost.
It's not bad. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Well, it's not bad, and it is bad.
It's bad.
If you're collecting other stuff, it's real bad. So as far as just news, like I said, not a lot, but we can talk a little bit about the Hiya Toys Baroness, which I think looks awesome. What do you guys think of this?
Stunning.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to have her in hand.
And if you'll notice, she is not what's the word I'm looking for? I want to use this word all the time and I can't ever think of it. One side does not match the other side.
Symmetrical?
She's not asymmetrical. Look at her shoulders. Her shoulder pads match, unlike the classified figure. So she is a little bit more of a classic design, although she does have, I meant to put a picture into this and I didn't, but you can see it in this one. She does have the pink highlights in her hair.
I liked that. I like it. If you're going to update her, I think that makes sense.
Well, that was the original Blackout design, although that design had gold trim as well, which this one does not have. But they've basically just refined the Blackout design down to be a little more classic. I think it looks great. I don't understand her massive Uzi / Mac 10 whatever firearm is going on there. I mean, obviously that's enlarged because you can look at the hands and see that they're gigantic.
But wasn't the gun that her original figure came with also ridiculously oversized? Sorry,
big futuristic machine gun.
Yeah, but if it had been that one, it would make sense. This looks like one of those things where they've packed an out-of-scale weapon. Like I said, even though this is clearly...
It looks like something that would mount on the back of a vehicle.
Yeah, it just looks really weird. But it is probably half again as big as it might be twice as big as it's actually going to be.
Yeah, because it definitely does not look like it's in scale with those little pistols, unless those pistols are tiny.
Well, no, the pistols are... If you look at the additional hands on here, they're huge. And the pistols are also huge. So, I mean, those accessories are all oversized. But that just seems like a weird gun choice. But other than that, figure looks great. Pretty exciting to see.
Boyle and Pop is asking about the Super 7 Reaction Wave 8 leak.
Oh, yeah. So, Full Force... Or actually, it wasn't Full Force. It was somebody on Twitter leaked Reaction Wave 8, but we don't discuss leaks. We'll do rumors. We'll speculate, but as far as leaks, I'm not a big fan of talking about those. So we'll come back to that stuff once it's officially announced or once we get something a little more concrete. But suffice it to say, excited that Reaction is continuing for the foreseeable future, and very excited to see what other Sunbow offerings they have. Well, that concludes the news. Are you guys ready to have some fun with a special Black Friday themed segment? Oh, I don't have a banner for this one.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no. What are we going to do? So, looking back over the years of collecting G.I. Joe back when you were just wee children, what was one of the more exciting things about this time of year?
No
Chestnuts.
school.
Oh,
Roasting
for sure.
an
Getting
open
out of school.
fire.
Obviously, every single company that put out a toy catalog.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so maybe we want to talk a little bit about wish books.
I wish I had the Magic Kingdom fireworks used to be called Wishes. And they had this little girl voice that would always go, Wishes! And I hated it. I wish I had that right now.
So, to celebrate one of the biggest consumer days of the year, we are going to celebrate one of the biggest consumer events of all time. That's right. Jeff Butler's got it. Going through the wish book and making the Christmas list. Every single year we would pour through the Sears wish book, the J.C. Penney wish books, and we have to give credit here to wishbookweb.com.
Don't forget service merchandise too.
Oh yeah, service merchandise. That's right. Service merchandise was also a big one. Wishbookweb.com, one of the greatest resources for nostalgia on the internet. They have many, many, many years of different companies' wish books archived on their website. Go check them out. Spend hours perusing the treasures within. I mean, it really is magical. But we're going to look back at this G.I. Joe 2-page spread from 1985. Now, when I sent this to you guys, did you look at this and go, oh, I remember these images?
To a certain degree, mainly because when I started to get into toy photography, this is what I remembered as a kid. So the kind of catalog approach is like burned into my brain. More so Star Wars than the G.I. Joes, because they usually actually use like a star curtain and stuff with the Star Wars ones. But yeah, the deja vu, flood of memories just came right back.
Well, and what I think is the G.I. Joe Berg, check that flag hull 2 times taller than the retail version. My inspiration for raising the flag. Kevin Riddle, Sears Wish Book, and my turn to underline what I wanted. That's right. You would go through with the pen and underline everything. It's great to see stuff like this, but really some of the more magical aspects of the Wish Book to me are going through and finding the things that we forgot about. And we're going to be doing that a little bit later. But first, we've got to talk about Joe, obviously, and we've got to start
Joe stuff too. The Joe adjacent stuff that they would always advertise alongside it. That was always my favorite thing.
And we will get to it because there's some right here on these pages. But we got to start with the elephant in the room or the aircraft carrier in the room. Now you'll notice because the image was deep in the crevice of the middle of the book, we've got a little weird line down the middle here, but there it is, the USS flag. Indeed, as G.I. Joe Berg said, a little bit taller than the actual flag. But look at that beautiful specimen of toy. All of those Joes on the deck, that Sky Striker, the Rattler coming in for attack with little Theodore and little Simon there in their matching GI Joe T-shirts with Duke on the front. Look at those fancy long sleeve shirts.
Those T-shirts are amazing.
The striping around the sleeves. They're like
Yes.
baseball style shirts, but they're, you know what? I bet those are pajamas.
Oh, yeah, because Christmas morning, you're not like, oh, let me put on my Little League jersey and go open some presents. You're
those are
lucky if you have time to put on your pajamas.
Those are definitely pajama tops. Absolutely. And those are probably somewhere else in the catalog.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Mandalorian Jedi, you're sick. I can't wait for the classified flag to come out. You classified flag and terror drone people have mental issues. Palpatine 1975. Greetings, lightning bolts, gentlemen. So this is just gorgeous. What kid in 1985 saw this and didn't immediately just go into absolute seizures of must-haveness? And I, of course, ended up having one.
So I got to ask you, because when I saw this photo, that kid is way too happy playing with the microphone speaker part of the flag. As someone who rarely, if ever, used the speaker for Snake Mountain, did kids actually, was that like a thing? Like, did you spend your playtime like breaker? We got planes coming in for a landing.
Well, my desire. Okay, so my recollection of the loudspeaker for the flag is. Now, that may be me exaggerating. I honestly don't have super clear memories of using it, but that's, and anybody in the chat, G.I. Joe Berg can probably correct me if you've got a flag. I don't know if it has a functioning loudspeaker or not, but for me, if it had worked the way I wanted it to work, it would have been like to make deck announcements, like Sky Striker coming in for landing, clear the deck, shipwreck, get to the poop deck, Polly threw up again, or like it would have been making announcements. For this, the microphone for Snake Mountain, like, kind of makes sense, I guess, for that if you want that snake to talk, right, or that goblin or whatever it is to talk.
Right. It was never really clear.
I don't
think
remember
it's supposed to be the goblin because the mouth moves.
I don't remember talking into the microphone because I didn't have one, but I've mentioned that moving to Atlanta, I got to stay with my friend while he was in Europe for 3 months while we were having our house built. So I had a flag for like a summer. And I don't remember ever talking into it, but it did have like little alarm noises and stuff on it too, didn't it?
Oh, that G.I. Joe Berg has just stepped in and confirmed. Yep, all it does is muffle your voice. Sounds. The 3 alarm sounds are cool, though.
Okay,
I just was playing with that all the time.
I would have been all about the alarm sounds. So
I mean, a cool feature.
I wouldn't have been as happy as that kid.
No,
making
sounds,
but
made me pretty happy.
You weren't getting paid that sweet Sears wish book money to look happy either,
right?
Look, even as an adult driving a car later, I was so thrilled about having that little thing on my dashboard that made the little like rocket sounds that you could press when you got angry at the other drivers. So I love little electronic devices that made funny sounds.
Yeah, noises are cool. Definitely. I need to get a soundboard for us in here. Palpatine 1975. Speaking of vintage Joes, I've recently picked up a Conquest X30 complete with original box accessories and even those mini catalogs that used to come with toys.
I miss those.
The gem right there. Those are fantastic.
I remember buying an 86 Transformer just to get the 86 catalog, but it was one of the early ones that didn't yet have it in there yet, so I still got an 85 catalog. I was so mad.
Boo.
They were using it was Hot Rod, and this was long before the movie came out, and I was just so excited to get this toy. It was at Pace Membership Warehouse, which was kind of like a Sam's Club / Costco back in the day. So toys were a little bit cheaper there, but I spent my allowance money to buy this toy only to get a catalog that wasn't in the box. So disappointed.
Oh. All right. So the flag, a gorgeous monument to 80s consumerism. But there's other stuff to talk about. Look at this incredible battlescape.
That is what would make me, as a kid, want the battle platform. Like that right there is just the battle platform looks so cool.
Well, what's funny is right here, it's just on land.
Yep.
It looks like it's because it's got the front leg looks like it's down in what's supposed to be water.
Oh yeah, there might be a little puddle here, huh?
Yeah.
So it's partially in land and partially in water, which honestly even cooler.
Mm-hmm.
And it's raised up in the air, so it's just covering every Joe possibility.
That's right, land and sea and air. Well, it's got the helipad too, which would look pretty nifty with a shark or a skyhawk on it. But I understand we can't just overload this image with awesomeness because we've got.
It's got Quick Kick and his flying feet coming off of it.
Let's take a moment. The tactical battle platform is currently manned by Cutter, Barbecue, Footloose, Frostbite, Airtight, and Quick Kick. All hanging out, different action poses. Barbecue's guarding the ladder. Footloose is at the front guarding the ramp. Frostbite is next to him.
Frostbite and Quick Kick are, on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as climate control go.
That's right. You've got Airtight hanging out in the weapons storage bay. And then Cutter is in the chair, manning the command console. On the left, on the ground, those devious twins, Tomax and Zaymot, are attacking. You've got, what have we got on the right side there?
You got a Televiper,
Ripper. Is that a Crimson Guard?
Crimson Guard, Torch,
and a Snow Serpent.
No, yeah,
Snow Serpent.
Well,
of course.
because you need somebody to fight Frostbite,
right?
But
and that was the logic, wasn't it? It wasn't really even about the environment. It was about I have to have this versus this.
But is that Alpine driving the Ostriker?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sure is.
And it looks
and
like, is that
another Footloose?
Yeah. So,
oh my God!
Upgrade from Double Flash.
That's
double
right.
Footloose.
Double Footloose. Well, he is.
Or is that Feet Loose?
Or Footlooses.
Or Footloose and his partner, Fancy Free.
Oh, no.
And we're sober tonight, folks.
Now I got some G.I. Joe fan fiction I need to write tonight.
Well, it looks like... Whoa. Or maybe some more art. We need more art on this show. Is that Flint driving the Mauler?
Mm-hmm.
And then Dusty is up there behind him.
Mm-hmm.
So quite a scene, quite an investment to recreate this scene, and you're just never going to have this cool a diorama. You may have your backyard, you may be able to dig a little bit or whatever, but it's never going to look quite this cool.
So, from birth to 5th grade, we actually lived in Indiana at the top of a hill, and the city was originally that I grew up in there was going to build a Walmart. They had the backhoes, they cleared all the land, and then the project was canceled. So right at the bottom of our hill, we had the size, and this is, before super Walmarts, but the size of a Walmart of this dirt cavern with like trenches, overturned trees. So
Oh my gosh.
me and my friends did have when I moved to Kentucky and just got like a regular a backyard just has grass, then I got screwed. I had this for a very long time.
Oh my gosh.
It was
sounds
awesome.
awesome, but also dangerous.
Yes, very many figures are probably still there. Like if they build anything on it, it's going to be like a very interesting poltergeist.
Little dead G.I. Joes. Kevin Riddle, I wonder why I'm trying to create dioramas for my Joes now. It's because of the Sears Wish Book advertisements. Knowing is half the battle. And of course, those commercials, too. I mean, the commercials had the same kind of awesome stuff. Next up, we've got a special Sears set. What do you guys want to tell us about this thing? Noel's muted.
We
Crimson
can't hear you.
Attack Tank, the CAT, and then the Hiss, the Crimson Hiss Tank with the SMS.
A beautiful set. Definitely a forerunner to that 2002 set that I bought a couple of months ago. But I really like the combination of red and black on these. It looks really sharp because if the Mobat was all red, it would look kind of goofy. Same thing with the Hiss. Like the black really, it's just a cool look. It's a great design. Red and black are cool colors together. They just are. Never had this.
And just like the idea that, the Crimson Guard had their own vehicles, which was something they didn't really explore any of the main stuff, but we got these awesome Sears exclusives, and they were something I drooled over, but nobody I knew ever had these.
I had one friend who was a little bit older than me, and he seemed to have everything. He had all the JCPenney exclusives, all the Sears exclusives. I don't think he had the Dreadnought sets. No, I take that back. He had the Dreadnought, was the Land set, the Ram, and the Vamp.
Was it the Ram? Yeah. And then the other one was the Fang and
the Skyhawk.
Skyhawk,
yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty sure he had the Land Dreadnought set, but not the Sky set. But he had, like, I had all the mainline stuff, 82 to 87, but he had, like, a lot more beyond that. He had the Listen and Fun Tripwire. Although he did not have Special Mission Brazil. So got you on that one, Peyton Davis. So yeah, the great set, really cool. I would love if O-Ring were ever to continue in any way and we actually got vehicles, pipe dream. I would love to see these reissued. And again, everybody check out wishbookweb.com for incredible childhood memories. Next up, those wily twins, Tomax and Zaymot. Look at Tomax, I believe, just swinging out of the sky
on the zip line
in a way that his classified figure cannot.
Yeah, still the biggest missed opportunity in classified history.
But he's got 2 knives.
Do you? Yeah, he's got 2 knives, and he's got little knife throwing fingers, which I really do like. Do you guys remember? Because I'm trying to think back through all of these decades at my first impression of these two. I feel like I remember thinking they looked really cool and extra villainous.
The first time, like the first memory I have of seeing them is on the pegs, and they had that awesome package with the the mirrored sticker. And as a kid, the concept of Corsican twins, or however you say it,
yes,
I loved that. So I just thought these two were going to be way more than any of the other Cobras.
I mean, they look like, through modern eyes, yes, they look like circus uniforms or whatever. And of course, they ended up being circus performer people. But honestly, they do just look like they have really cool, like, high-ranking Cobra uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
Like that they're just a new level of senior Cobra officer ready to do evil.
Well, and they were like, I always thought that they seemed like they were powerful, and the fact that they led their own faction, like they were my Cobra leaders in several of my stories that I played out. Like I had, Cobra Commander was captured and like Serpentor was exiled or whatever, and these guys were the ones running the show.
They were my field leaders. They were my like opposition to Flint or Duke or whoever.
They were my spies, with a dash of Dr. Doom.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting that you went with them and not Destro as Dr. Doom.
Well, because Dr. Doom was so, even as a kid, I understood, Dr. Doom has that accident, is like, no, I have to hide my face. And I didn't quite like the scar because his brother got mad at him. I always played that as he could not possibly hate his brother more, and that scar,
wow,
he was more Dr. Doom like I am the one that is going to have my rage and kill the Joes.
Ooh, that's intense. Woodman29 is here in the chat. Ken Tomlin, I think HasLabs should be O-Ring figure sets. There's no way O-Ring HasLabs wouldn't be funded. I actually agree with you. If they would do that, I think they would be very successful. Don't worry about giving us big vehicles. Do a mid-sized vehicle and 10 figures. Do something. Look, if they just offered like a year at a time, Hasbro could make so much money off successfully executed O-rings, and they just can't seem to figure out how to do it. G.I. Joe Berg, I use these guys as fallen Jedi. A red lightsaber and a Batman cape clipped to their bare shoulders made for quite a look. I bet it did. Put that up on Instagram. I want to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably just make that happen, but that would be cool. Oh, wait, actually, I've got right here, I've got a Vader, a lightsaber, Tomax and Zaymod just a stretch away. We might see that before the show's over. Next up, a little Snowcat action with, it looks like, once again, Alpine driving.
Which makes sense. I mean, he's equipped for cold weather environments.
Sure, but what do you say? Frostbite, get out and walk.
Yeah.
Well, you give the guy this giant weapon, and he's got to use it sometime.
And, it's a cold environment, so maybe Frostbite has a little bit of the whiskey to keep his blood going. I mean, he can't be behind the wheel of a Snowcat.
And
then we've got Airtight and Barbecue riding in the rear.
Which they don't camouflage very well in the snow, but at least they're probably well insulated in those.
Yes,
outfits.
they are covered. Mm-hmm. They are covered. No flesh exposed, so at least they're better off than Quick Kick would be. Next up, I apologize for the blurriness, but obviously a lot of these scans are not the highest resolution in the world. But what a gang of evil goons!
But we're missing a knock. Like, why is Buzzer not here?
Well, did he maybe come out later in the year or something?
I don't think so. I think they were all, because I mean,
but I don't think there was
84 bodies that just were released in 85 because they didn't have the heads that went up and down. So like them and Tollbooth were kind of oddities for 85 because they were clearly tooled earlier than the rest of them.
Right.
But I feel like if you look at the other Wish books as well, there was never any rhyme or reason other than good guy packs, bad guy packs with how Sears put these together.
Yeah, that's true. Hasbro might have just sort of, here's what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a bad guy pack consisting of Scrap Iron, Crimson Guard, an Eel, a Snow Serpent. I'm sorry, not Scrap Iron, Televiper.
Televiper.
I said it was a blurry picture. Ripper and Torch. So a little pack of evil. Actually, you know what? Now that I say that, I'm curious to go back and see. I don't think we're going to be able to read it. Oh, yeah, I can't read that at all. Moving on to Land and Sea. Interesting that this one is not as stocked up as some of the others. And while
the whale doesn't even have anybody. Oh,
Cutter's in there.
Yeah, Cutter's up there at the top.
Cutter's in there.
Nobody's in the little gun ports.
Well, and the Televiper is driving.
They're pushing the Televipers this Christmas.
They're big on the Televiper. And then we've got the bridge layer actually laying a bridge across a beautifully depicted body of water. Look at those little bushes.
Mm-hmm.
Little seaside landscaping.
And I use that bridge layer all the time. It was at like the center of my G.I. Joe convoys because I had that terraced backyard on that lake, and I needed somebody to span those big gaps. And
I never had it, but my best friend Tony did, and as a kid, I did not appreciate it.
Well, as much as because like the bridge layers, the bit that holds the bridge on, because you actually have to bend that plastic to get it on and off.
Yeah,
it's notorious for being like one of the easily breakable parts. Man, I must have taken mine on and off 1,000 times as a kid, and it's still intact. So
yeah, mine never broke.
Lucky there.
It had stress marks, but it never broke.
Now, if you do it now, over time, that plastic is probably a little more brittle than it was in 1985.
Sure.
So
I think it was like either my second or third Dragon Con when I learned that the bridge layer was a real thing, and one of my Joe cosplayer friends showed me online that it was real. Because as a kid, I thought that was totally made up.
Well, like the images of
the
guy typing on the internet, like doing this. That was me the first time I saw the stupid BuzzFeed article. It was like 10 of the most ridiculous vehicles in G.I. Joe, and the bridge layer was on there, and I was like, it's a real thing.
We've got an interesting discussion comment from G.I. Joeberg. Everybody listen up and be ready to start doing what Noel was just doing with the typing. Does the community think modern Hasbro reproductions of O-rings make the grade? I'm not sure I'd be interested in crowdfunding inferior reproductions of toys I already own. Now, there are a lot of loaded words in this comment. First, I want to address make the grade. It depends on what your own personal grade is. Do you want modern, sturdier representations of characters you love so that you can have these figures and not worry about them breaking? If that's the grade you want, then sure. Inferior reproductions, also pretty loaded because they're sturdier. Yeah. They don't have the gloss, but that's really more a matter of taste than anything else. Some of them have a little better construction. Some of them have softer sculpting. So there's really no debating that the soft sculpting would need to be improved. But yeah, I 100% would love to have modern reproductions of figures I already own, because every time I touch one of my vintage Joes, I have to worry about, am I going to break a thumb off? Is this crotch going to explode? Is this going to be the day that the torso decides to start splitting apart? I would love to have versions of all of those characters that I loved and grew up with and not have to worry about, handling them with kid gloves.
When I look at the troopers and like the Stinger drivers that I have for the new ones, honestly, if it weren't for nostalgia making me want a figure look a certain way. These would have probably been like superior figures if I'd gotten them this way to begin with. I think that the paint apps are much better. The sculpts are much cleaner. They just and they're sturdier. They're better built figures.
I'll give you guys the better built, but I'm on the opposite spectrum. Like I definitely, surprise, I would be all in for an updated O-ring line, but I want it, even though we don't have them in hand yet, I want it to be more along the lines of like a call sign longbow. Because when I got the Sky Striker, yeah, definitely, like I said, the construction on the figures is better. That soft sculpt, though, like Ripcord, doesn't look like he has any delineation from his neck to his chin.
No, I'm on the same page with you on that. I want
some of the
sharper
paint.
sculpts.
It's too heavy-handed. It looks like if I painted the figure. So I think there's room for improvement on them.
Well,
compared to what they've given us.
The trooper, just the ones that came with the Transformers figures, and then the trooper officer and the Stinger drivers have been the only ones that I've actually held in hand, because everything else I still have sealed. So I haven't gotten a chance to really handle all of them.
And in an ideal world, if Hasbro were to return to O-rings, or if Super 7 is to pick them up, yes, I would want them to get some of the people that work on Longbow and Recall and whatever else to do the sculpting and not just scan. Like, yeah, sure, scan the original figures, but let's plus them up rather than softening them down.
Like, I get the nostalgia factor because, let's look at that Zartan. Yep. Awesome. He looks like the original Zartan, but an updated face sculpt, so he looked more human and less I got stung by a bee.
Well, this one has an updated face sculpt. It looks
it does?
To me, it looks better.
Okay.
Yeah, he and Zorana both have completely new portraits.
Now, I also presume he doesn't change colors.
No, he doesn't. Neither one of them do.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah, if it weren't for the production failings on him and Zorana, they would be very good.
I'm looking forward to the review then, because I want to see the faces.
Yeah, you'll get a look at them. That'll be up tomorrow, right here on the Needless Things YouTube channel. Let's see here. Mandalorian Jedi. I want reproductions of what I had as a kid, probably more than I want new stuff. I know I'm living in the past, but I like it there. We all do. That's why we're all here tonight. Kevin Riddle. I'd be down for almost like a classified update of new O-rings. I'm starting to run out of space, and 3.75 would be great. Let's see. Ken Tomlin, I also look at reproductions of the classic O-rings as a way for collectors fans to get figures like Night Force or Tiger Force groups all together for a lot less money than what the originals cost. 100%. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Will R., did you guys see the ramen bridge layer concept? What a wild, preposterous idea that is. Can you imagine paying $500 for a bridge layer that had, because I believe it had room for like 4 classified figures.
Oh my gosh.
Seated. I mean, that thing.
Wow.
It's price wise, even if it's $100, I just don't want a bridge layer that big. I love that they're doing it. I think it's a lot of fun that they're ideating like that. And good luck to them with it. But that's so low on my list, regardless of the price, that it's not even something I'd contemplate.
Although, only because I read it way too quickly, I now need a G.I. Joe Transformers crossover. More of the Transformers bots, because I need a cup of ramen that transforms into the bridge. Because ramen bridge layer sounds awesome.
I completely forgot this part. Will R brings this up. It's modular and can make a Wolverine and a Mobat, which, by the way, where'd they get that idea? I feel like that's come up somewhere before.
To piggyback on what Ken Tomlin was saying about, the reproductions being able to complete those old lines, like when it comes to Transformers on my shelf, if I buy a reproduction and it looks better than the original G1 figure, that's what goes up on the shelf for me. Like the newest Starscream, the Walmart one, just replaced the last reproduction Starscream that I had up there, which had replaced the original one, because I just think that those figures look better. It's just a better representation of the character to me. So I would, with my Joes, most of what I have up there is just original stuff, but I've actually not been opposed to, in the background, sticking some of the newer figures, like Troopers especially, to just kind of give it a little bit more depth.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
If they weren't $22.99 a piece, or whatever the individual price was that they were charging for, and you could army build for a much more reasonable price, then I would be buying tons of the new O-ring figures if I had the opportunity.
Oh, and to go back to the ramen bridge layer, that is ingenious to make it modular. I'm glad somebody picked that idea up, whether they got it from us or not. But again, good Lord, how much is the thing going to cost? And I still have never had a ramen product in hand, so I don't know. I know they've got their fans, so maybe they're making really good quality stuff. Maybe I'll see it in person someday and fall in love. All right, moving on. Here we go, Noel. Tell us about this little trio of treats.
Well, we had talked about the radio control tank and Jeep.
Yes.
I think it was like 1 or 2 Christmases ago on one of our shows. And in one of the catalogs, they have the Joe figures in that Jeep, and it'll burst your bubble because it's not quite the scale.
No.
It's very wee, but the idea of having remote control vehicles to play with your Joe figures was always something that, honestly, to this day, I saw somebody who did a custom Awstriker RC, and I was like, I should do that with one of the like busted Awstrikers that I've got. Find a little RC vehicle, and I could have my own. What was the Crossfire? I could have my own version of that, but not have to pay $700 for a Crossfire.
I would much rather have a little remote controlled Awstriker than that gigantic, ridiculous Crossfire. That, by the way, I did have when I was a kid and drove like one time.
Yeah. I just got the I mentioned I got that Jada Toys Optimus Prime auto transforming one. Not the one that costs $600,
right.
But the one that you could get at Target for $70. I got it on the Bullseye site, and after all the discounts, it was only like $27. I was like, done. I played with that thing for hours the other day. First of all, it's fun because it transforms and it talks and stuff, and it rolls around really well. It's also great to torment my dogs. So, but no, I just hey, look, a radio controlled toy. I have not had one of these in years, but I was always fascinated. But I think these are those terrible little radio controls that they go forward in a straight line and they go back and to the left, and that's all they ever do.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, I had that blue helicopter right there. And it was awesome. And it was Tomax and Zaymot's personal transport.
Nice.
But the remote control functionality was not really great. But if you look at it, it's a cool vehicle.
Did it just drive forward and then
no,
spin?
it actually, I'm trying to remember. I believe it was
flying.
It was no, it definitely wasn't flying. It was multi-directional. I think the rotors might have spun.
Let's hope that, because that at least makes sense as opposed to it driving.
I believe it did, but it was another thing where it ate up batteries. So that was the thing about the Crossfire, is it used something like 6 AA batteries and then a 9-volt battery in the remote or in the control,
Mhm.
and like it ate up batteries in like 20 minutes. It was ridiculous, and this thing was the same way. So eventually, I just wasn't even playing with it with the remote. I was just flying it around like any other vehicle. And then we've got. I have no memory of this awesome thing. This 8-wheel open top moon rover that looks very much like the exploration vehicle from the deleted scene in Aliens.
It's
This thing is
reminding
cool.
me of the Big Track, but you couldn't put figures in a Big Track. So,
Wow, that's not going to be the last time we mention Big Track tonight.
Wow.
oh wow,
But
So,
yeah, I
yeah.
remember that. Well, and I had some little vehicles that were similar to that came with these little like 3-inch articulated figures, but I don't think this was part of that line. But they had a vehicle that was very, very similar to that one in that picture.
Yeah,
But I don't know
well,
if
and I
this is
think
Joe scaled or if it's something it's a completely different scale.
well, this looks like it might be sort of a companion piece to that helicopter.
Hmm.
hmm
So this is almost certainly Joe scaled. And I think every like Radio Shack had stuff like this. JC Penney, like every retailer had their own version of these kinds of things.
I'm
Oh
just
man, it
impressed that this little
would. Ken Tomlin, that Moon Rover would make a great October Guard custom vehicle.
yeah.
Yeah, it would.
yes,
From the comics. Very much like that.
I like this little like jiving elf that says cut $2.
Yes, that elf is excited about the price drop. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what our next slide is. It's so tiny I can't see it, but I do believe next up we have made selections from elsewhere round the wish book. Each of us has picked a non-Joe item to reminisce and reflect on. Noel, are you ready to talk about your pick?
Sure. Hey, look at
Tell
all
us
those
about it.
robots. So, and I had specifically mentioned one thing on here, but I am glad that you did put the entire thing up because I kind of want to touch on just the general idea of robot toys in 1984, 1985.
You're like Polly from Rocky IV. You want to touch on robots.
Right. We know what Polly did with that robot. But so I had a Big Track, which at the time, like Big Track was essentially a robot. If anybody doesn't remember the Big Track, it was a little like 6-wheeled vehicle, but it had like you could program it. You would tell it to like go forward like 5 feet and then turn left, and then it would go, and then it would fire, and then you could have it like turn around, and then they actually had a trailer that went with it that was an add-on accessory, and you could get it to like dump the trailer. I spent hours, and that was a toy that transcended being a Star Wars toy later to becoming a GI Joe toy, and I
Yeah.
could program it to do things, and it was one of Cobra's or Destro. Probably would have used this in my head canon, but I didn't have a Destro as a kid, so I couldn't do that. But I also had another one of these little robot toys that was a little car, and you drew a line, like a black line with a
Oh
crayon.
my
yes,
gosh.
yes.
Yeah, and it wasn't until later on when I started understanding a little bit about robotics, it's like, oh, that's a robot. That's actually a very basic
Whoa.
functioning robot. So when 84 came out and there was an issue of Penny Power, if you remember Penny Power, it was a magazine put out by Consumer Reports for kids, and they compared a lot of different toy lines. And I remember getting the issue where they talked about all the big like toys that were like robot related, because in 84 that was when GoBots and Transformers, but also Max Steel's RoboForce, Voltron,
Yeah.
all that stuff was in stores. It was kind of like Robot Mania, but they did a big thing about the real robots that are now becoming available. And I remember seeing that Omnibot 2000, and I fell in love, and I begged and pleaded for that thing for so long. And look, I begged and pleaded for a flag. The flag retailed for about $90 to $100 when it first came out.
Yeah.
This thing was $500.
Whoa!
I think it's $449 here, and it may have been a little bit less at some other retailers.
How
But I mean,
big is it?
This is about 28 inches tall. I think it's
Okay.
the biggest of the four here. Max Steel over here, however, even more expensive.
Oh wait,
I remember,
that's actually the RoboForce Max Steel.
Yeah.
yeah, that was the Max Steel RoboForce. Now Tomy
Oh.
did all of these. That was the big thing. Was like Tomy was putting all these robots out, so they did their Omnibot stuff, and they had Verbot. Verbot's the one that's over on the bottom right, the larger of the two in that bottom one. Verbot actually responded to like verbal cues, and that was really cool. Some of my friends had that one, but it was still like Verbot was still like $150, something like that. And this is 85 money.
Right. Yeah.
Chatbot down there at the bottom was like $60, and it repeated back phrases. It wasn't very cool. Like I had friends that got Chatbot and were very disappointed. So I was like,
I've got news for you. Chatbot is back. And it still just repeats phrases.
Right. But yeah, the Max Steel was great, and the Max Steel actually did some more practical things, like it could pick things up and carry them and stuff. But like that Omnibot, like I still to this day, like I wish I had one. I've looked at them for years after that. Maybe I can get one on the aftermarket that still works, and they're still ridiculously prohibitively expensive for something that would just be a novelty toy for me.
Man.
But the
it's not really a novelty, because as I remember from the commercial, the claw, like that's big enough to hold a can. As an adult now, that's like a service dog. It goes to the refrigerator, gets your beer, and brings it to you.
That's right.
That is worth at least $500 in 80s money, which is probably like, $3,000 now.
But if you look at the Omnibot, clearly that design inspired some things, because like Wafflebot from the Harold and Kumar Christmas movie, 80s Robot from the Muppets, like all very related to this Omnibot. As far as
Will R is saying Rob from NES's evil brother, and it is very
kind of Rob-esque.
I think Rob came out this same year, didn't he?
85, yeah. Well, I think the Omnibot 2000 may have come out in 84.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, 84, 85, it was around this time that like robots were the thing.
My best friend in high school had Rob, and I mean, maybe it's just because so much time had passed, because we were on Super Nintendo by then. Rob sucked.
Oh no, yeah, Rob was bad from the start.
2 games. Was it Gyromite, and there was one other that it actually interacted with. So
I want to say it was Burger Time, but that's not right.
It was not Burger Time.
It was not Burger Time. Because that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Something with like stacking in its name or something.
Something like that. But yeah, it was literally just like, it just did that. Like it was it was weak. It was not as lame as the Power Glove.
True. But the Power Glove looked cool on.
The Power Glove did look cool.
Oh yeah, Zoids, Star Ears, those were also ones. Daniel Rodriguez.
Daniel Rodriguez, drooled over Zoids and Star Ears pictures, absolutely.
I had tons of Zoids, because Zoids were great, because they were small and you pieced them together and then you wound them up, and they still made Zoids up until I think they still do. They
still do.
Yeah.
There's actually a great to go back to old Secret Galaxy that we talk about all the time. He's got a feature on Zoids that's great. Stack Up. Will R. Stack Up was the other game. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there he is. Omnibot 2000. Very impressive. The picture does not do him justice. I'm just saying that Max Steel is. I don't remember that at all. I mean, I remember the actual toy.
I think they made more of him than like the Omnibot, because I see him at conventions fairly regularly.
Yeah, and he was like. I think overall he was probably the one that had the most functionality as far as programmability and stuff like that too. I do remember there was an ad that used to come on that said like, he walks, he talks, he's 2 feet tall. And then as kids, we used to say, he cost $500.
But he doesn't have the cool hugging power that the regular Max Steel figure had.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it is time to move on. Christian tried to pull a fast one on me and send me some nice high-res
Oh
pics
yeah.
of his selection, and we don't play that here in Wishbook Land. So you are going to be stuck with the page
Bum,
of
bum,
the
bum.
catalog,
Well,
just
you know
like
what?
the rest of us.
Well, the catalog helps my argument, actually.
Okay, good, good. Well, and this looks incredible. Here, we can zoom in.
So my pick is Golden Girl, not the sitcom, although Barbarian B. Arthur would
thank you for
make
being a
me
fan.
so happy.
I would buy that in a second.
But as a kid, yes, I love G.I. Joe, but He-Man, 100%. Like, that was my big thing. And also as a kid, I never understood the concept of girls' toys, boy toys. If something looked cool, I wanted it. And
Well, I think if we're being honest, every boy in the 80s was a little girl toy curious.
so,
Like everybody wanted to smell a strawberry shortcake. Just a
well, some guys still do and
and
pay nicely for it.
and looking at looking at this page, that fortress is awesome.
That's the thing. So with Golden Girl, it very much was created as barbarian warriors for girls, whereas She-Ra toys absolutely did not match up with the cartoon.
Right.
She-Ra toys were here's girly stuff, right? Like the Crystal Castle had a lacy bed. What does She-Ra need with a lacy bed to fight the Horde? This castle, on the inside of it, it's like, here's this flaming torch and a training area. The main thing, though, for me as a kid with the Golden Girls, and my parents never let me buy any, but the villains were so cool. Evelyn, awesome, but if you get a chance, look some of these up, because like Dragon Lady, Mothwoman, they look like psychotic glow wrestlers, and they were the exact same size and sort of build as Tila, but they did have jointed knees. They had like the Barbie knees, so it was like a soft plastic with an armature underneath, so they had a little bit more posability. So it wasn't what I consider girly like Princess of Power. And man, I wanted them because He-Man as a toy line was sorely lacking in female combatants.
Well, and that's what this looks like, a line of females that are He-Man, like a Red Sonja line or something. And this anybody listening or if you're watching, like once we're done, Google Golden Girl Palace of Gems. It looks like a villain's palace from Conan.
Like, honestly, if I were to ever find one, not eBay,
like at a show,
so I don't have to pay the shipping, because it is fairly large, I would absolutely buy it and make it, because it would scale with Classified a little bit off, but it's so awesome looking, and they don't have it in this catalog. Down at the bottom, right where it says Golden Girl, you can see the villain Dragon Lady on her black horse. The horse drags a chariot that is shaped with this giant dragon head that comes out and over where the person would sit. It was like, Conan meets Dungeons and Dragons meets Lady He-Man. But it was made by Galoob, and it's hard to find them in good shape.
Golden Girl Palace of Gems, not on eBay at all.
Wow.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I
Whoa.
vaguely remember these because I remember them being out around the same time as Sheer was out.
Well, I see them at shows all the time.
Yeah.
Not the Palace, but like the
Yeah.
figures and
The weapons were die-cast metal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they got some weight to them. Because one of my friends, his little sister, did have them, which is why I got to play with them, and obviously then wanted them. But yeah, the plastic that they used for them, if you didn't take care of them, it doesn't hold up very well, and they like to fall into amputee pieces.
Will R says, "Give me that Destro, give me that
Yes!
Destro's castle." Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Ken Tomlin, I used to duct tape my sister's Care Bear plastic figures into my version of Voltron, Care Bear Tron. My sister would get so mad at me.
Well, my same friend, his younger sister, as younger siblings tend to want to do, they want to play with you as well. So when we would be playing G.I. Joe or He-Man, she would come in with like her Rainbow Bright or her My Little Ponies. And there is nothing, I think, as awesome as seeing He-Man, instead of riding on Battle Cat, on the back of a Pegasus G1 My Little Pony, just flying into battle.
Oh, I thought you were going to say on the back of Murky Dismal.
They were more like stuffed animals. We usually with those, we were like, get those out of here.
Wasn't Murky Dismal the little puffball bad guy from
Yes.
Rainbow Bright? Okay, good.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you, Brain. I'm glad you can
Wow.
remember that. But you
I knew the
can't
name and
remember. Boy, we're all terribly, terribly broken. And speaking of which, I hope everybody's ready to get a little weird because it's time for story time with Dave.
Uh-oh.
So, Noel, you wanted a robot. Christian, you wanted an awesome castle full of barbarian women. Whereas Dave, looking to the future and seeing the career that he knew he was going to be pursuing. Young 9-year-old Dave in 1985 looked ahead and knew that in the year 2023, 47-year-old Dave was beyond a shadow of a doubt going to be the world's most successful ventriloquist.
God. No.
Leon!
I had the Charlie McCarthy ventriloquist dummy, and I was 1,000% convinced that I was going to be a ventriloquist when I grew up. I all day, every day, walked around the house with this dummy, talking at my parents, talking to my baby sister. When guests would come over, I would bring out my ventriloquist dummy and I would ventriloquize for anybody who would even glance in my direction. And there was, again, no doubt in my mind that this was my calling and my career. So on page 475 of the 1985 Sears Wish Book that you can find at wishbookweb.com, you will see a selection of ventriloquist dummies and that Charlie McCarthy, the gentleman with the top hat and the monocle, because I knew I wanted to keep it classy.
I'm just picturing young Dave now, like what's his name?
Like the psychopath he was?
Well, I know the puppet's name was Bob. I can never remember the ventriloquist name, though, on Soap, where the puppet just went everywhere with him. It was real
It was
thing.
like that. It was like that.
Come on, we're going to McDonald's, and
my mom
Dave's Charlie McCarthy is like, give me my nuggets.
My mom had to tell me I couldn't bring him to the dinner table
I hope you're not like Joe Bluth with Franklin.
No. So that's I've shared a deep
Wow.
So yeah.
I
Yeah,
loved
you got
Muppets
that
and
right,
Puppets,
Ken.
but
Dave was the
ventriloquist
coolest
dummies.
kid in his neighborhood. They were all so jealous of my mad ventriloquist skills. I'm also pretty sure my mom wouldn't. I don't think he ever came into school for like show and tell or anything. I think my mom was pretty conscious of not letting that get too far out into public. The other one, I cannot remember. There was a very successful black ventriloquist, and that is his dummy. And I cannot remember the ventriloquist name or the dummy's name
I
right now.
thought it was Leon. Willie Tyler.
Yes.
Willie Tyler and Lester.
Lester. That's right. Because we cannot read the print in this ad at all. Yeah, that's right. Willie Tyler and Lester, very, very big at the time. Actually, much bigger than Charlie McCarthy was at the time, or Howdy Doody, who is here.
Yeah.
For some reason in 1985.
Well, because everything is cyclical by 30 years. That's why in the 80s, 50s culture. So Happy Days, remember Richie Cunningham was big into Howdy Doody.
Yeah.
So grandma, grandpa, parents that want to buy you a puppet, they're going to know Howdy Doody.
That's true.
Yep. Kicked off with Grease, the disco 50s movie.
And just to wrap things up with
Wait, I'm sorry. New York Night, 1974. I want a Cobra Commander ventriloquist dummy.
Oh my gosh.
That would be brilliant.
But I want it to have
chrome.
I want it to have a jaw in the chrome visor.
That's what I was curious about. It's like, how would the mouth articulate?
Well, you take it off, and then there's like, the Snake Man Cobra Commander.
Oh, there you go. That's even better. I like that even better.
But then you can only say once a man.
So just to return to the world of G.I. Joe, one last thing from the Wish book. Jeff Butler. Fun fact, Willie Tyler and Lester were popular enough to be regular cast members on the final season of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. Yes.
Suck it to me.
Put that in your Funkin' Wagnalls. All right. One last thing from the Wish book. Look at that gorgeous G.I. Joe sleeping bag, complete with... Now, did it roll up into that little carrying bag, or is that a tote that it went into?
That's a tote. That's something you would buy separate to put it into.
Oh, you're right, because the tote has a 9 and the sleeping bag has a 2. So those are two separate items.
That's just brilliant and shameless cross promotion right there.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, flanking the Joes are the Superpowers and Transformers.
That page, I spent probably more time on it than I should have.
It's awesome. It is awesome. Oh man, I did a very poor job here because we are done with Operation Black Friday. Our Wish Book reminiscences have come to a close. It is time now for the segment that you, the Audible Army, provide. Sound off. And I have failed in my mission because I forgot to add sound off to the slide. So we're just going to have to go off of my drive over here. But that's okay because we're all...
that's because by that point they were already starting to figure out, is Storm Shadow a Joe? Is he a Cobra? We're just going to keep changing it.
Just a moment while I pull up our sound offs. Like I said, we didn't get a ton this week, but that's okay because we had plenty of content, my friends. All right, here we go. Sound off number 1 from Daniel Rod 35, who happens to be here in the chat, or at least was earlier. Missed a couple of streams, so not sure if it was covered, but I picked up Real American Hero 301. Wasn't expecting it to go that way, but hey, not a bad read. Loved the illustrations. I like pictures. Have you guys read it? Thoughts? Also started reading Nailbiter. Any recommendations for comics? Well, first of all, we will be reviewing G.I. Joe Real American Hero 301 on our next episode. The audio version will be available next Friday. So we'll share our thoughts then. Any comic recommendations? I haven't read comics regularly in years, but I will say my single pick for greatest comic book of all time is Saga. I think Saga is just the absolute greatest comic ever written, illustrated, anything else. Any comic recommendations from you guys?
I would just say there's a lot of good indie stuff out there. Unfortunately, I know Kindle is shutting down the Comixology app and absorbing everything into Kindle, so it's going to make it a little trickier to find stuff. I can't think of names off the top of my head, but most of what I've been enjoying are just like single one-off, writer artist made a book.
Yeah. Little passion projects.
Yeah.
There's actually, just off the top of my head, there is a comic called Wake. Hang on, I've got to look up. This is the wrong. Oh, it's by Scott Snyder and Sean Murphy. It came out years ago. But if you look up Scott Snyder Wake, it's a limited series. It's a like however many issues it is, 8 or 9 issues, and that's it. It's done. And it is great. I'm sorry, it's The Wake. So look up The Wake by Scott Snyder, and it's killer. It's sort of what Waterworld could have been, and I would love to see an adaptation of this thing. Noel, any comic recommendations, new or old?
I haven't read a non-Joe comic in many years, so little out of the loop with them. I guess actually, I think probably the last non-Joe comic I read was that odd little GoBots series they did.
Yes. Highest recommendation.
Yeah,
yes,
that was. I
so
wasn't.
good.
It took me a little while to kind of get what they were doing with it, but
Right.
once I really got into it, I really enjoyed.
It's
kind of an alternate history of Transformers and GoBots.
Yes.
Spoiler alerts.
It is a weird comic, but it is well worth reading. It's just GoBots. Oh gosh.
And the art.
Yeah.
I really, really liked. It was like muted colors with not like cross hatching.
It almost like it was drawn. Like some of it almost feels like it was drawn by a kid.
Yes,
like it was
right.
almost like a crayon texture.
Right.
Okay,
It's
here it is.
pencil, no inks.
It's GoBots by Tom Scioli. It's Scioli. Tom Scioli. GoBots, and it's one of my. It might be one of my all-time favorite comics. Like, it's so innovative and different and meta and weird.
Man,
I love it. Love it.
Ken Tomlin, old comic, Rising Stars, was really interesting and a fun read. And let me tell you, because I was working at a comic shop when that came out, the first, I think, like 10 or 12 issues of that, absolutely amazing. The issue with the person who can't feel any pain, how they use that against him to murder him, what is still mind-blowing. I think it falls into the same problem that a lot of J. Michael Straczynski's stuff does. If it goes on too long, he just kind of goes off the rails, and unfortunately that's one of those series that I think by the time it reached its third act, I was like, can they just end this now because I'm only buying it because I know it's ending with a certain issue.
That's not just Straczynski though.
No, there's a lot.
That's almost anything really. That's why I enjoy the like mini series and limited runs and finite. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's some not to go off on too far of a tangent, but like to me, a Jack Kirby, a Grant Morrison, if they have a really strong editor that can rein their ideas in, they can keep story concepts going and going and going and always surprising you. It's when the editor goes, "Oh, you're Grant Morrison, do what you want," and then all of a sudden the book just becomes not what it was before.
We can't say what the book becomes, but we all know.
Yeah. Whereas with Straczynski, like even I hope I'm not going to tick anybody off, but like even Babylon 5, I feel like the earlier seasons were really good, and then it just kind of reaches a point, and I'm like,
That's why I like shows that are designed to have a start and an ending point. And like even things like Stranger Things, I thought that first season was perfect. Mandalorian, I thought that first season was perfect. And it's just diminishing returns beyond that because a lot of times they'll have an idea for one story arc and then you got to continue that forever. You know, that's why Breaking Bad is so good, is because he knew where the show wanted to begin and wanted to end, and he did not push further.
Greatest one single episode aside, greatest television show of all time.
DP7, yes.
All right, we got to move on.
Sorry.
We got to move on. That's all right. That's all right. Mandalorian Jedi. If Skybound were afforded the opportunity to make a G.I. Joe animated series similar to the original 80s cartoon, what artist would you recruit to write an original theme, and what would it be like? Additionally, what existing song would you have them licensed to play during the episode end credits? I would have them recruit a band called Neon Warlords to write the original theme for the cartoon, because there is nobody alive on the planet right now that would do a better job of it. Everybody check out Neon Warlords. They're amazing. They just had a remix done by Droid Bishop, who some of you may be familiar with. It's incredible. Angel City by Neon Warlords, remixed by Droid Bishop. Additionally, what existing song would you have them licensed to play during the episode end credits? I wouldn't. I would have them play a slowed down instrumental version of the Neon Warlords song that opened the show. Because I always like that. I feel like that's what the end credits should be. They should just be like an instrumental variation of the opening theme. What about you guys?
I mean, I gotta say that for the theme and for any like music throughout the show, I think Electric Minnow Music has to be the one to produce it.
Oh, nice!
They've done some great stuff for a certain podcast.
That's true. That's true.
That does fit very well with the G.I. Joe vibe, and I can see that working with the new animated series. Actually, I was thinking about like for if you are going to do a licensed song for the outro, there's not one song, but I think that especially if you want to kind of keep kind of a retro vibe to the show, as I think that's the idea that we're talking about here. You license different songs that maybe have something to do with the plot of the episode.
Oh man, I love that.
So like if you had an episode, and it's going to cost a lot of money, this is just an example, but if you had an episode that took place in the jungle, you throw in "Welcome to the Jungle" by Guns N' Roses as the outro song. If you "Into the Fire" by Dokken as a song, if it's a show that like had like a big fire scene.
Oh man.
And
they would do the closing credits would just be like, remember how at the end of, they started doing it again. WWE at the end of the pay-per-view will do the clip recap. So that's the closing credits would just be the same credits every time, but underneath it would be playing like a clip recap of the show
from
this song playing.
Episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do
it.
I
was trying to remember like when we put together our own like ideas for a soundtrack using existing music for G.I. Joe the movie. Like some of the ones that we threw out, I think would be perfect. "Holding Out for a Hero" by Bonnie Tyler as the end of an episode, or
yeah.
So
I like that.
Will R, I'm bouncing off of his idea because I had a band, and compared to you guys now, I feel like I went really basic because in the shared Hasbro verse and for promotion, what band would you want? Cybertronic Spree.
Yeah.
And to have the Cybertronic Spree do their take on Suicide is Painless with RC belting it up, because they would, if we're going to go that way, we have to have the lyrics. It can't be just the music. We're not wimping out here. Yes. And if you guys have never heard the MASH lyrics,
I never want to hear the MASH theme song again, and I certainly don't ever need to hear it. The MASH theme song to me is a Pavlovian channel change response.
oh
I'm
no,
not a MASH fan.
that and the theme to Taxi, it will put me to sleep.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's the most.
But
Taxi's very depressing too.
yeah,
I love the Taxi theme because that was. I knew when that came on at Nick at Night, it was my happy time because it was my favorite show.
MASH. My memory of MASH is it came on when Saturday morning cartoons were done, so I hated MASH.
But Larry Hama was on MASH.
Well, that's fine.
Bringing it all back.
that's why he'll never be on our show.
That's right.
Oh, you were
Larry-
on MASH. Fine.
You voted Sergeant Slaughter out of G.I. Joe. I voted Larry Hama out of G.I. Joe.
No.
Of course not.
Strike
Of
that for
course
the record.
not. I would not, absolutely not do that. Not even for being on MASH. All right. Clint, 723. We're still talking about comic books. I'm kind of a comic book snob, I guess. I don't think omnibuses hold up nicely to reading the actual content. I loved IDW's hardcovers that would do like 12 books at a time. How do you hope they collect the comics, or even if Skybound plans to collect them? Keep up the great work, and thanks for helping me spend my excess money. That is what we're here for, Clint. Well, first of all, listen to the Alex Antone interview if you want some hints dropped about Skybound's plans. I am not, in general, I'm not a big fan of omnibuses unless they are big enough which some of the omnibuses I have are about 12 issues. I think the Starman omnibus books are about 10 or 12 issues. I don't like the massive ones, though, that get difficult to open and read. That's too much. The Saga omnibuses are manageable. They're oversized, but you can do it. But my preferred collected format is always going to be about 10 issues in just a standard trade paperback. That's, as far as just being able to read it, that's always going to be best for me. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I read everything digitally on my Kindle Fire. Space. Yeah. Hey,
I know.
I thought I would hate it, but once they came out with the 10-inch screen, honestly, it's like reading a comic.
Well, and you don't have to worry about what happened to some friends of ours years and years and years ago, is their floor collapsed under the weight of all the comic books that they were storing.
Well, I was very lucky when one of the comic shops that I worked at closed up. I got all of the industrial shelving, which is still in my storage unit holding my long boxes. But anyway, I do have some of those like massive 100-issue omnibuses, and they look good on a shelf. That's pretty much it. The oversized one, like, I think what's perfect is like the one I have for Crisis on Earth. Like you said, it's 12 issues, but it's a bigger print.
Like, you have to sit at the table to read it, but you can actually manage it.
Yeah. But if I'm going to sit down to read it, it's like a moment, right? Like, just because the book is so big, this isn't like, oh, I'm just laying in bed and I'm just going to flip through the pages.
Dude, one of the most gorgeous collected editions I own is the Absolute All-Star Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, the size is perfect, the everything about it and if anything that's like a high quality like archival edition like that, like if Skybound wants to do GI Joe like that, let's go. I am in. Remaster everything, like put in like I will buy everything from a standard trade paperback to a super fancy hardcover Larry Hama notes in the binding. Like, did you ever see any of the Bloom County collections that IDW put out
Yes.
with all the notes from Burke Breathed and like
Mm-hmm.
if they want to do that, let's go.
That's what I also love about the Crisis on Infinite Earth ones. It's 2 books in the slipcase. One being the omnibus with the issues, and then the second book is nothing but production notes, sketches,
yes.
the process of making it. And to me, that's like extras on a Blu-ray. Like, I eat that stuff up.
Yes, dude. And you know what? While we're talking about what if Skybound, let's start getting some of these art books out.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like, let's catch up with what Dark Horse has done with Masters of the Universe, please. Noel, do you have a preferred? I mean, you're mostly digital now. If you do have to read something, right?
Yeah, mostly digital at this point in time, and I've not really been one to collect a lot of omnibuses. I mean, I've got a few, but they're like they're just essentially the 6 issue or the 12 issue at most.
Right.
Books
Just collected editions
on a shelf. Yeah, so it's I don't really have too much of an opinion on the matter.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, I know what we do have opinions on, and that is G.I. Joe, and we have shared a lot of them here this week. But before we go, I think we've got just a few more minutes here for a little Joe and Tell, sponsored by our pal Slickalicious. Everybody check out Slickalicious. Shop Slickalicious on Instagram. I believe Black Friday sales are either going on or upcoming, so check that out. I'm going to go first only because I had 2 Joe and Tell possibilities that were struck down by fate. So I had to grab something off of my shelf over here, but I think it's something pretty decent. It is my still shrink-wrapped copy of G.I. Joe Monopoly that I really should open up and play at some point. This came out in 2009 when everything else G.I. Joe came out. The pieces are, I'll flip this around so you can see it, Duke's dog tags, Timber, the USS Flag, Cobra Commander's battle mask, the Thunder Machine, and a Cobra Snake. Oh, the glare on the monitor is no good.
No, we can see it.
There you go.
Yeah.
The board is You know what? Hang on.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it's an unboxing.
I just want to open this thing up.
It's on here first, folks.
Yeah, let's just get this shrink wrap off of it.
Mine's about 30 feet away, and it's also still in its box, and it's sealed.
I don't think I knew this existed, but I'm not surprised because everything has a monopoly.
So the board is just chock full of gorgeous art. I personally think it's one of the better looking licensed monopolies, or themed monopolies, I guess. And if you'll notice, it says includes optional G.I. Joe gameplay. Now, I have just now opened this, so I don't even know what that means. And they have Yo-Jo and Cobra cards replace Chance and Community Chest. So I am sometime very soon now going to be sitting down to play. My family hates Monopoly, so they will not be playing this with me.
So here's a question.
Yes.
Do you play by the rules, or do you play with house rules?
I don't even know what that means. I guess I play by the rules. What does that mean?
So when you land on a property, do you either have to buy it or auction it?
Oh my gosh, look at that. Woo,
wow.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful. And then the most important thing is, do you put money in the middle and then give it to somebody when they land on free parking? Because people who hate Monopoly, that's the reason why you hate Monopoly. A game of Monopoly lasts about 30 minutes if you play it by the rules. If you keep money in the game, that's when it makes it last for like 6 hours.
Hang on, there's another box on the floor here. I forgot to mention this earlier. So this is on the back of the Thunder Machine Soundwave set. Check out this little piece of intel. Cobra Intelligence reports a Joe transport en route with a formidable escort. Do not underestimate their forces. Terminate the threat like the marauders they are. So this is interesting. Obviously it seems to be referencing the Triple T, Slaughter, and Leatherneck, but I don't really think of the Triple T as a Joe transport.
I mean, it's transporting Sergeant Slaughter into battle.
It is, but it sounds to me a Joe transport with a formidable escort. I wonder if the escort is the Triple T and the transport, because we've talked about Optimus Prime as the APC many times on this show. What if that is being hinted at?
That would make sense. But it's the use of the word marauder that's getting me, because I know when we see it, the Triple T will look like the Triple T.
Right.
But knowing that it's Cup, Cup isn't a white transformer. Now, granted, they pulled it off with Bumblebee as well, as far as the Ostriker being all green. But do you think they would make the Triple T in Marauder colors so that Cup is that bluish green?
No,
and
I don't
it
think
comes
so.
with a Marauder colored Slaughter.
Well, from the box art that got revealed, leaked. Well, I guess that was a leak. Well, we didn't really.
We didn't talk about it.
Yeah, we didn't talk too much about it. And I, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I feel like Slaughter and Leatherneck were just their regular versions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back on track. So that's G.I. Joe Monopoly. We'll have to check that out sometime when maybe Noel and I can get together and play that at some point.
A charity stream.
Yeah. Oh gosh, no. Nobody wants to watch us play Monopoly. All right. Who wants to go next? Oh, I keep forgetting to do the upsize on the screen. I don't remember until it's Noel's turn, because I remember he hates it.
Well, I've got things to show, so I mean that's okay. I don't mind that, because I don't have to have my face doesn't have to be the subject. So I went to Retro Toy Con in Greenville over the past weekend, as I mentioned earlier on, and I talked about all the things I did. But yes, I also bought toys because it was a retro toy show. Before the show even began, they do room sales. So the way the hotel's laid out is it's an atrium hotel. They've got a bunch of rooms that have like a little living room in the front, and then the back is where the beds are. So people will set up in that little living room area their own toys, and you get good deals and that stuff like that. So the first night that I was there, going around a little bit, I went to, if you know Destro's Toy Den, they're a vendor that I've dealt with a lot of times. Got a few figures there. I've got a Cobra La Royal Guard that actually has the antenna.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah. So and I got me a set.
Oh,
awesome.
So jealous.
Oh yeah.
Saving money on bidets.
Yep, there's an Eels in there as well. I also, while just kind of picking through some stuff, they had a bunch of like incomplete vehicles. This Claw that I essentially got thrown in for free for getting those figures.
Oh my gosh.
It's missing like, several parts of it.
Sure.
But it's otherwise it's so clean.
It's
and
in nice shape. Yeah.
Great shape. The fact that it still has the wings and the flaps here is nice. So I'm actually, I may, because really the stuff that is missing aside from the engine cover here is on the underside, and I may just like put it up against my my Terradrome, so it's just decorative at that point anyway. So I didn't have a bag with me or anything. I'd shove the figures down into the pocket, but because of the little fins and stuff, I didn't want to risk that, getting broken off if I bumped into something. So I'm just carrying this around. So here's kind of the best tell part of it. I go into a room a guy is selling essentially nothing but wrestling figures. He's got a bunch of WWE and AEW and a bunch of other stuff in there as well, and some other memorabilia. And I remember him being there last year too. But I'm not interested in buying wrestling figures, but I'm always interested in looking at people's collection and perusing and talking to them, and and just having conversations with people on there. I'm holding this in my hands. One of the guys says, "Oh, you got a GI Joe vehicle? Are you into GI Joe?" I'm also wearing a Crimson Guard shirt, by the way. And I was like, "A little bit." He was like, "So I got that, the Televiper, and he comes with that. What's that vehicle? The bubble. It's like the trouble bubble. Yeah, the classified one." He goes, "Yeah. Well, I bought it because I wanted the Televiper, but I don't really need the trouble bubble. Do you want it?" I was like, "How much are you asking for it?" He goes, 15, and
Oh
couldn't
my
even
gosh.
say yes fast enough.
Wow.
So yeah, I got me a third trouble
Wow.
bubble for $15. So my friend Brian, who I was with, was kind of like, "Yeah, I want that." But he I was like, he asked me directly because I was carrying this claw. So yeah, I got that for that wonderful little price.
Nice.
A few minutes after that, actually, it was the last one of the night. I walked in and I saw this this Predaking, and I was like, "Man, that's a thing that I'd love to have." Transformers 86 Predaking. Was it 86 or 85? Anyway,
I think 86.
it's a toy I never had. I always wanted, but complete ones are pretty expensive. They'll put you back about $300 if you get a complete one in good condition. He had one for $200. Brian was like, "Well, if I buy that Terradrome off you for $20, or that Patrol Bubble off you for $20, then it's 20 that can go towards your thing here." And then he asked him, "How much can you hook my friend up on that Predaking?" So he dropped a good chunk of it. So now I have a complete.
Oh wow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
wow.
yeah.
Nice.
Followed by the next morning. Thanks again to Brian. I was
The morning after.
Yeah, the preview was going on at the time. The floor was not officially open to the public, but there's a vendor who likes to sell things in large bulk and often at very good prices, and I always try to go to him first. And I was planning on walking in, but before I did, Brian was like, "Go to the deal guy, Warthog." So I had to give me a nice.
Oh, it looks good too.
Complete. So it's complete. I'm not going to open these because they're notoriously brittle parts. But if you look inside,
okay.
all the guardrails are intact. All the other bits, like the trailer here, the trailer hitch, are all intact. Yeah, it's nice and clean. Doesn't have a slaughter, but I've already got one, so I wasn't too concerned about that. And he threw in a nice complete Silver Mirage, which are also pretty tough to get at a reasonable price. Complete.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's so ugly compared to the Ram.
Oh, it's not my favorite vehicle, but it's just.
It was free.
Yeah, the one I've got is being held together by Plastitac at this point.
I vastly prefer the Mirage to the Ram, but I acknowledge that the Ram is the far more iconic vehicle.
And then let's see, a couple more things, not that exciting, but I did on the second night there. Somebody had a broadside G1 Transformer. Missing his sword, but that's not a huge deal. Anyway, he had this, and I basically held up a dollar bill of a certain denomination. I said, "How much do you actually want for this?" It's like I was playing a little game there, and thankfully he bit. But the last thing I bought right before we tore our stuff down, I was like, "I'm going to do one more cruise through the room," and I'd seen this the day before. He was selling a Tiger Paw for $50. I said, "How much you want for this?" And he was like, "Well, if you'll take the one next to it as well, I'll give it to you for $40. So here we go. I got a pair of paws. One of them is missing the hose, but that's okay because if I wanted to flip the second one even without the hose, I could probably still turn a profit on that if I needed to. But
yes, you could, Noel.
Yeah, so if anybody here is looking for a
yes, you could, Noel. I am both sickened and thrilled by your good fortune.
Yeah.
It was a good weekend. Like I said, I didn't go in with anything in mind that I wanted to buy. A lot of times I go to these shows, I got certain things in mind.
Yeah.
The Joe Fest, I went a little crazy buying loose troopers, and really the only thing I did was I found an eel that was in good shape that was missing some accessories, but he was very cheap, and I was like, all right, and more eels are always good. But yeah, thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
All right, Christian, what do you got?
Okay. So was it our last or one before that where Dave got in his Mega Marine Monster Hunter APC?
Yes, that was last live stream. Yes.
Yeah. So when he had sent us the photos of it, I mean, obviously, if you listen to the episodes, that the episode that we did on the Mega Marines, he and I were gushing over that vehicle. We absolutely fell in love with it. So he managed to score the Monster Hunter version, and then we found out that there was a Cobra version we saw that was done in black and gold, and dumb luck, one happened to be on eBay that was complete, and I mean, honestly, I low balled it and figured, yeah, I mean, this thing still had like 3 days to go, but I managed to win it. So I got the black
Nice.
and gold. This is called the Cobra Bat APC. Apparently, I learned it was like a Toys R Us exclusive, and it came with a bunch of, or like 5 of the Spy Patrol bat, which this one did not, and that's okay because once I saw what they looked like, I was like, oh.
They're not bad in person.
But yeah, so now I'm gonna have to start hunting down more G1 style army builders, because obviously all the pegs are G1 style, not 25th anniversary style.
You need some Iron Grenadiers to put on that
thing.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. It's not an Iron Grenadiers vehicle, is it?
But it's the colors.
But it looks like an Iron Grenadiers vehicle.
Absolutely, now, the colors.
It's showing up as like almost like a purple tint. I don't know. If it's just
that's because my camera light is bouncing off the wall. It is not as crimson a red as like, or I'm sorry, not as like coloring crown red as the Hiss tank that we saw in the Sears catalog. It's more of like a darker crimson.
More like the current classified crimson.
The black looks like it's purple.
Oh no, yeah, no, it's black.
That's
and it's
awesome
got killer hubcaps.
That is definitely on my list.
Yeah,
down the road.
Certainly not in the era of stuff I'm collecting, but that's such a cool looking vehicle. I think it looks better in those colors than it does because it doesn't look like a G.I. Joe vehicle. It looks like something Destro would design.
Yeah,
I'm surprised it did not come out earlier in the line. Because I feel like if it had, like, I don't know how well it sold, but I feel like if it had come out earlier in the line in those military colors, it would be like the Snowcat. We would have multiple variations in multiple colors because this is an incredible vehicle toy.
It's really cool, and it holds a ton of truth.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we are absolutely out of time this week. We have had a blast talking about G.I. Joe. Before we go, Christian, where can we find that toy photography, soon to include that new vehicle of yours, I'm sure, that you do so well?
You can find me on Instagram and Flickr under the name Legion Cub.
And Noel, why don't you tell us a little bit about The Finest?
I talked a little bit about them earlier, but The Finest is a G.I. Joe costuming club, and we raise money for a great organization called Canines for Warriors. We raised over $200 for Canines for Warriors at Retro Toy Con in Greenville. Not bad for essentially just having 2 costume people in the booth for a little while on Saturday. But if you've ever thought about dressing up like your favorite Joe character, check out thefinestcc.com, the Finest Recruitment Center on Facebook to get some tips and hey, help us raise money for a great cause and have fun doing it.
Our music is by Andy Simford of electricminnowmusic.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Audible Interlude Podcast and on X at G.I. Joe Audible. We will be back December 4th with another live stream. Next week, audio episode, we will be reviewing G.I. Joe Real American Hero number 301, as well as some other segments. And until then, yo, Joe.
Cobra.